Hey everyone, Elizabeth here. The Last Laugh delivers stories that leave you speechless. If you're here for it, hit subscribe and let's go.
The wedding invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Heavy cream cardstock calligraphy addressing, the kind that screamed old money and careful social positioning. My brother Marcus's wedding to Victoria Ashford, daughter of Richard Ashford, senior partner at one of California's most prestigious corporate law firms. I knew before opening it what I'd find. Marcus Alexander Chin and Victoria Louise Ashford request the honor of your presence. The formal language continued for several lines. Then at the bottom in smaller script, intimate ceremony for immediate family and close friends. Limited seating available. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Victoria's text was direct. My father is a senior partner at Ashford and Martinez. The guest list is quite selective. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable sitting this one out. I stared at the message, then set my phone down without responding. This wasn't unexpected. This was exactly what I'd been watching build for 8 years. Growing up, Marcus was perfect. Straight A's, debate team captain, full ride to Princeton, corporate law track at a top firm. Partnership potential before 30. I was different. Emma's figuring things out, Mom would explain when I dropped out of Harvard Business School after one semester. She's still young. She's wasting her life, Dad would say, not bothering to lower his voice. 22 and working as a secretary. It's embarrassing. Marcus would shake his head with that perfect mixture of pity and disappointment. I offered you an entry-level position at my firm. You said no. I'm not interested in corporate law. You mean you're not interested in success? What they didn't know, what I never told them, was that my secretary job was at a tiny tech startup in Silicon Valley. 2 MIT dropouts in a garage building cybersecurity software. They paid me $35,000 a year plus 20% equity. That equity was worth nothing at the time. The company had $17,000 in the bank and big dreams. I took the job anyway. Mom cried. Dad stopped calling for 6 months. Marcus sent a long email about realistic expectations and accepting your limitations. I kept showing up to that garage. 18 months later, we landed our first major contract. Then a healthcare company. Then government contractors noticed our work. Year 3, 42 employees, $8.2 million revenue. Year 5, went public. Year 7, I was CEO of a company valued at $95 million, overseeing 180 employees across 3 countries, holding contracts with Fortune 500 companies and federal agencies. My family still thought I was a secretary. I never corrected them. Every holiday, every gathering, I'd show up in simple clothes, drive my 7-year-old Honda Civic, and let them assume whatever they wanted. Still at that admin job? Mom would ask, disappointed. Still there. Emma, you're 30, Dad would say. When will you do something with your life? Marcus would change the subject, embarrassed for me. I wasn't hiding out of shame. I was conducting an experiment. I wanted to see how long they could know me and still only see their expectations. The answer, indefinitely. Being underestimated gives you extraordinary freedom. When your family thinks you're barely surviving, they don't ask for money. They don't involve you in their plans. They just leave you alone. Which was exactly what I needed. While Marcus climbed the corporate law ladder, billing 2,800 hours annually and bragging about partnership track, I built something he couldn't understand. Cybersecurity wasn't glamorous. No courtroom drama, no high-stakes negotiations. Just code, protocols, endless testing. Finding vulnerabilities before bad guys did. Protecting data, securing infrastructure, making sure hospitals and power grids couldn't be breached. Valuable. Profitable. Year 4, $12 million healthcare contract. Year 6, protecting financial data for 3 major banks. Year 7, federal security clearances, government contracts I couldn't name. My personal compensation, $1.8 million annually, not counting stock options. I lived in a modest 2-bedroom condo. Drove that Honda. Wore Target clothes. Saved aggressively. My family never asked questions. They'd decided who I was at 22 and nothing could change that narrative. Emma's still figuring things out, Mom would tell friends apologetically. Meanwhile, TechCrunch was profiling me. Forbes wanted a feature on women CEOs in cybersecurity. I declined. The timing wasn't right. I was waiting to see how cruel they'd become when they thought I couldn't fight back. Marcus's wedding would show me. 2 weeks after the invitation, Victoria texted again. Marcus and I discussed the guest list. Given your circumstances, we think it's better if you didn't attend. The Ashford family has certain expectations. We wouldn't want you to feel uncomfortable. I forwarded it to my lawyer, Jennifer Park. She called immediately. Emma, this is garbage. You don't have to take this. I know. But I'm going to. Why? I want to see how far they'll go. Jennifer was silent. Another experiment. Something like that. What Victoria didn't mention, what I discovered later, was that Marcus had become suspicious. Not of my success but of my contentment. She's too calm, he told Victoria. Emma never asks for help, never complains, never struggles. Something doesn't add up. Victoria, inheriting her father's suspicious nature, agreed. So they hired a private investigator. Thomas Morrison. 30 years law enforcement, 15 with FBI, now running his own firm. Specialized in background checks, financial investigations, corporate due diligence. Marcus paid him $8,500 for a comprehensive investigation. Employment verification, financial records, property ownership. Everything. The goal: verify subjects' employment status and financial circumstances, with particular attention to any discrepancies or fraudulent claims. They wanted to prove I was lying about something. Morrison was thorough. He requested employment verification, checked property records, pulled credit reports, conducted surveillance. What Marcus didn't know was that Morrison was also ethical. When seasoned investigators find interesting financial patterns during background checks, they sometimes expand their scope. Especially when those patterns suggest criminal activity. Especially when that activity involves the person who hired them. Morrison called me on Tuesday afternoon. Ms. Anderson? Thomas Morrison, private investigator. I need to speak with you urgently. I pulled over. I'm listening. Your brother hired me to investigate your finances. During that investigation, I uncovered information you should know about. I also found irregularities regarding your brother's own financial activities. My hands tightened on the wheel. What irregularities? The kind that interest the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Can we meet? We met that evening at a Palo Alto coffee shop. Morrison was exactly what I expected. Late 50s, gray hair, the face of someone who'd seen too much to be surprised anymore. He slid a folder across the table. First, confirming what you know. Your CEO and founder of CyberShield Security. Company valuation approximately $95 million. Personal net worth approximately $47 million. Annual compensation $1.8 million. Security clearances with multiple federal agencies. I nodded. My brother doesn't know. Your brother thinks you're an administrative assistant making $45,000 annually. Morrison's expression was neutral. I found that interesting. What else? He opened the folder. Your brother is a 6th-year associate at Whitmore and Harrison Corporate Law. He handles client trust accounts, including escrow for major transactions. Over 14 months, I've identified at least $210,000 in unauthorized transfers from client accounts to a personal offshore account in the Cayman Islands. My stomach dropped. Client funds. He's been skimming from settlement accounts and merger escrow. Small amounts from large accounts, timed with legitimate transactions to avoid detection. Sophisticated. Also completely illegal. Why tell me? Morrison leaned back. When I find criminal evidence, I have legal obligation to report it. But I believe in transparency. Your brother hired me to use whatever I found against you. Instead, I found he's committing felony theft. You should know before I file my report. You're reporting him. I've already contacted the FBI. They're preparing warrants. He paused. One more thing. Your brother planned to present my findings at his rehearsal dinner. He wanted to humiliate you in front of the Ashford family. Prove you've been lying. Except you found the opposite. I found you've been remarkably successful while maintaining unusual privacy. And that your brother is a thief. Morrison closed the folder. Rehearsal dinner is Friday. FBI moves Friday evening. Thought you'd want to know. Are you still presenting your findings? Your brother paid for a complete investigation. He'll get exactly what he paid for. Morrison's expression was grim. Both parts. The rehearsal dinner was at Piedmont Country Club. Victoria's family members for 3 generations. Main dining room reserved for 60 guests. Family wedding party, the Ashford family's inner circle. I wasn't invited. I showed up anyway. I'd chosen carefully. Not designer board meeting clothes. Not casual Target basics. Something between. Simple black dress. Minimal jewelry. My Honda parked between Victoria's Mercedes and Dad's BMW. The hostess looked confused. I don't see Emma Anderson on the list. I'm the groom's sister. There must be a mistake. Mom appeared, her face cycling through surprise, dismay, anger. Emma. What are you doing here? Attending my brother's rehearsal dinner. You weren't invited. I received an invitation. May I come in? Mom looked like she wanted to argue, but we were in public. The Ashfords were watching. She stepped aside reluctantly. The dining room was elegant. Cream tablecloths, floral centerpieces, soft piano music. 60 people in cocktail attire holding champagne, networking. Marcus saw me immediately. His expression darkened. He crossed the room fast. Emma. You shouldn't be here. I'm your sister. You weren't on the list. Why not? He glanced around, lowering his voice. Because Victoria's family has standards. They're successful, important people. And you're 30 working a secretary job, driving a 15-year-old car without the self-awareness to be embarrassed. This wedding is important. Victoria's father is here. Senior partners. I don't need my failure of a sister making everyone uncomfortable. I looked at him. The brother I'd grown up with. The golden child who'd never questioned whether his success qualified him to judge everyone else. I see. Just stay in back. Don't talk to anyone. Leave before speeches. I'll tell Mom you weren't feeling well. He walked away. I found a seat at a back table. Not family. Not even extended family. A table for obligatory colleague invites. I sat and waited. Victoria's father, Richard Ashford, stood for the welcome toast. Senior partner. 40 years practice. Never lost a major case. We're delighted to celebrate Marcus and Victoria's union. Both families have much to be proud of. Marcus's success at Whitmore and Harrison. Victoria's achievements at our firm. 2 families of accomplishment and distinction. Polite applause. Before dinner, Marcus has arranged a special presentation. Something about ensuring we truly know each other before tomorrow's ceremony. Richard smiled. Marcus. Marcus stood confident. Thank you, Richard. Yes, I thought it appropriate to share information that recently came to light. Information everyone should be aware of. He gestured toward the entrance. I'd like to introduce Thomas Morrison. Mr. Morrison is a private investigator with 30 years experience, 15 with the FBI. I hired him several weeks ago for a comprehensive background investigation. Morrison entered wearing a suit, carrying a leather briefcase. Expression completely neutral. The room went quiet. You see, Marcus continued, I had concerns about certain family members who may not have been entirely honest about their circumstances. Their employment. Their finances. Their claims about their lives. He looked directly at me. So I hired Mr. Morrison to find the truth. To verify everything. What he found was illuminating. Marcus smiled. Mr. Morrison? Morrison walked to the front. He set his briefcase down, extracting 2 manila folders. Thank you, Mr. Chin. He held up the first folder. I was hired to conduct comprehensive background investigation into Emma Catherine Anderson, age 30, residing in San Jose, California. Every eye turned toward me. Morrison opened the folder. The investigation included employment verification, financial records review, property ownership checks, general background verification. 6 weeks, multiple sources consulted. He paused, looking at Marcus. Here's what I found. Emma Anderson is founder and CEO of CyberShield Security, a cybersecurity firm headquartered in Silicon Valley. Founded 8 years ago, went public 3 years ago. Current valuation. Approximately $95 million. Employs 180 people across offices in San Jose, Austin, and London. The room erupted in whispers. Marcus's face went pale. That's not. Ms. Anderson's current annual compensation is $1.8 million. not including stock options valued at approximately $23 million. Personal net worth estimated at $47 million. The company holds active contracts with 17 Fortune 500 companies and maintains security clearances with multiple federal agencies. Mom had her hand over her mouth. Dad stared at me like I was a stranger. Morrison continued, voice level. Ms. Anderson has been profiled in TechCrunch, Forbes, and Wall Street Journal. Named to Forbes 30 under 30 4 years ago. Received Governor's Business Innovation Award 2 years ago. Serves on Stanford's Computer Science Advisory Board. Spoken at 3 international cybersecurity conferences. Victoria's father leaned forward, expression sharp. In summary, Ms. Anderson is a highly successful entrepreneur and CEO who has, for her own reasons, maintained privacy about professional achievements with her family. No evidence of fraud, deception, or criminal activity whatsoever. He closed the first folder and picked up the second. However, he continued, voice hardening, as part of my investigation, I also reviewed financial records for the person who hired me. Standard practice to avoid conflicts of interest. Marcus went from pale to white. Marcus Alexander Chin is a 6th-year associate at Whitmore and Harrison LLP, specializing in corporate law and client trust account management. During my investigation, I identified significant irregularities in his handling of client escrow accounts. Complete silence. Specifically, over 14 months, Mr. Chin made approximately 43 unauthorized transfers from client trust accounts to a personal offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Total value, $210,000. Someone gasped. Morrison pulled out a document. Transfers were small, typically $3,000 to $8,000, timed with legitimate transactions. Sophisticated. Carefully hidden. Completely illegal. He looked directly at Marcus. Under California law, this constitutes felony theft and breach of fiduciary duty. Under federal law, because several accounts involved interstate transactions, this also constitutes wire fraud. Richard Ashford stood. This is absurd. Marcus, tell him this is nonsense. Marcus stared at Morrison, mouth opening and closing silently. I have copies of all relevant financial records. Bank statements. Transfer receipts. Account numbers. Specific client accounts compromised. Exact dates and amounts of each unauthorized transfer. He pulled out another document. 6 hours ago, I provided all this information to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They reviewed the evidence and found it sufficient for federal warrants. Morrison checked his watch. Those warrants should be executed in approximately. The dining room doors opened. 4 people in dark suits entered. 2 men, 2 women. The lead agent held up a badge. FBI. We're looking for Marcus Alexander Chin. The room exploded. People standing, talking over each other, pulling out phones. Victoria screaming. Richard Ashford yelling about lawyers and warrants. Marcus backing away, face drained of color. Marcus Chin, the lead agent said, you're under arrest for wire fraud and theft of client funds. You have the right to remain silent. Mom started sobbing. An agent handcuffed Marcus. Another read writes. The entire Ashford family stared in horror as the golden child, the perfect son-in-law, was arrested at his own rehearsal dinner. Victoria turned on me, face twisted with rage. This is your fault. You did this. I stood slowly. I didn't steal $210,000, Victoria. Your fiancé did that. You're lying. You're jealous because you're nothing and he's successful. I'm CEO of a $95 million company. I was never jealous. I wanted to see how long before you'd actually see me. Turns out never. Richard Ashford approached, lawyer instincts kicking in. Ms. Anderson, I apologize. If we'd known about your circumstances, this would have been handled differently. Would it? Or would you have just wanted something from me? He had no answer. FBI agents escorted Marcus toward the exit. He was crying, pleading, insisting this was a misunderstanding. Morrison approached me. Ms. Anderson, I apologize you experienced this. For what it's worth, your brother paid for a complete investigation. I simply delivered what he paid for. Both parts. Both parts. He handed me a card. If you need anything, call. He left. I looked around. At Mom sobbing. At Victoria on the phone with lawyers. At the Ashford family, their elegant dinner destroyed. At Marcus being led out in handcuffs, the golden child fallen spectacularly. I picked up my purse and walked toward the exit. Dad caught my arm. Emma, wait. We need to talk. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. But you're successful. I was always successful, Dad. You just never asked. I pulled free and walked out. The news broke within hours. Silicon Valley CEO's brother arrested for $210,000 embezzlement at own rehearsal dinner. Private investigator exposes attorney's theft while investigating CEO's sister. My phone rang at 6 a.m. I ignored 20 calls, then answered Jennifer's. Emma, every news outlet is calling. Forbes wants exclusive interview. The story's viral. I know. Weddings cancelled. Marcus held pending bail. Whitmore and Harrison conducting internal investigation. Victoria's family hired 3 law firms. I know. FBI confirmed they'd been tracking the offshore account for weeks. Morrison's evidence was the final piece. Additional charges likely. I was quiet. Jennifer, I need you to do something. Name it. Establish a victim compensation fund. For Marcus's clients. Anonymous. Every penny returned with interest before FBI finishes investigating. Emma, that's over $200,000. I can afford it. Set it up today. Silence. You're better than I'd be. I'm not doing it for him. For the people he hurt. The fund was established that afternoon. All Marcus's clients received full restitution plus 10% interest within 72 hours. Anonymous. FBI was baffled but grateful. Marcus was released on $100,000 bail my parents paid. Wedding officially cancelled. Victoria returned the ring, hired crisis management to distance herself. My parents called 11 times in 3 days. I didn't answer. 4th day they showed up at my office. CyberShield Security occupied a modern glass building in downtown San Jose. 3 floors. Our logo prominent in the lobby. Government-level security protocols. My assistant David called. Ms. Anderson, 2 people claiming to be your parents. Send them up. They arrived 5 minutes later. Mom looked sleepless. Dad looked older than ever. I gestured to chairs. They sat. Nice office, Dad said. Thank you. Emma, Mom started, voice breaking. We need to talk about Marcus. The lawyers say charges are serious. Federal prison serious. You need money. She flinched. We need help. For your brother. I leaned back. The brother who hired an investigator to humiliate me? Who stole $210,000 from clients? That brother. He made a mistake. 43 mistakes over 14 months. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. Dad leaned forward. Emma, he's your brother. Family helps family. I laughed bitterly. Family helps family. Interesting. Where was family when I built this company? When I worked 18-hour days in a garage? When I took risks and faced failure? We didn't know. You didn't ask. For 8 years you assumed I was a failure. You dismissed me, pitted me, were embarrassed by me. You never once asked what I actually did. Never visited my office. Never asked to see my work. You decided who I was at 22 and never questioned it. Mom was crying. We're sorry. We should have. You should have seen me. Should have known me. But you were too busy being proud of Marcus to notice I was succeeding in ways you couldn't understand. Please, Dad said. He's facing 15 years. Whose fault is that? Silence. I've already helped. I established a victim compensation fund. Every client Marcus stole from has been made whole. Paid anonymously so it wouldn't affect his sentencing. They stared. But I won't help him avoid consequences. He committed real crimes. People trusted him and he betrayed that. He needs to face what he did. He's your brother, Mom whispered. He stopped being my brother when he tried to destroy me publicly to feel superior. I stood. We're done. They didn't move. If you want a relationship going forward, it starts with actually seeing me. Not my success. Not my money. Me. The person I've always been. The person you never knew. Dad stood slowly. Emma. I need time. And you need to think about who you are when your children don't meet expectations. They left. I stood at my office window for a long time, looking out over the city where I'd built something real. Where I'd proven at least to myself that their opinion never mattered. My phone buzzed. Morrison. Final report filed. FBI confirming additional charges likely. You handled that with more grace than most. Good luck, Ms. Anderson. I didn't respond. Marcus took a plea deal. 7 years federal prison, full restitution, permanent disbarment. His attorney recommended it after FBI found additional transfers. Total theft, $267,000. Victoria married a different attorney 6 months later. I wasn't invited. My parents and I met monthly for coffee. Conversations were awkward, careful. They were trying. I was trying. Not easy. Mom asked about my company once. She asked. Wanted to know what cybersecurity meant, what we did, why it mattered. I told her. She listened. It was a start. Dad forwarded an article about CyberShield's latest federal contract. Subject line, proud of you. First time he'd ever said that. I didn't know if we'd ever have a real relationship. If the damage could be repaired. But I'd stopped waiting for validation. Stopped needing them to see me. I'd seen myself. Built something remarkable. Proven my worth to people who mattered. My team, my clients, my industry. Their opinion was just noise. Forbes eventually ran that feature. Emma Anderson, the CEO who built an empire in secret. The article mentioned the wedding arrest but focused on company growth, innovation, impact. The photo was taken in our server room. Me in jeans and company t-shirt, surrounded by infrastructure protecting millions of data pieces daily. I looked happy, successful. I looked exactly like who I was. The article ended with my quote, "Success isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about building something that matters and being who you want to be. Everything else is just commentary." My phone buzzed when the article went live. Congratulations from colleagues. Pride from my team. Interview requests. Nothing from Marcus. Federal prison in Pennsylvania. Nothing from Victoria. Changed her name, moved to New York. Text from Mom. We're sorry we missed so much. Can we try again? I stared at the message. Then typed, coffee next Tuesday? Her response came immediately. Yes. Please. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. Not erasing 8 years of dismissal. But a start. And sometimes that's enough. I closed my laptop, locked my office, walked to my car. Not the Honda. I'd finally replaced it with something newer. Not flashy. Just appropriate. Driving home through Silicon Valley evening traffic, past dozens of tech companies and startups and dreams being built in garages, I thought about that younger version of myself. 22, taking a chance. Believing when no one else did. She'd been right. And that was worth more than any family approval could ever be.